we'll go back to, okay, Ron, clearly I am not doing something correct here.
Okay.
Let's see what I'm doing.
Are you wanting to look back at another page?
No, I am wanting to go back to this. I'm not sure if I can go back. So I need to pull it back.
What are you wanting to go
It
back?
needs to go to this page, it's on this page. I can't figure it out.
That's strange.
Isn't that weird? I think I've got 2 versions of it. Anyway, we're going to talk about where you get business. I will tell you that the easiest way to get business is locally. I know that sounds bizarro because we're so used to defaulting to online with strangers. People you know need writers. People who own businesses that haven't updated their website in 12 years. People that need advertising copy that have no clue what they're doing. There is local business to be had. That is your easy business. People you know. Okay? People who need letters written. Organizations that need letters written or need membership things done or need a brochure done. That is easy business and it gets you great experience. They're people you know. Okay? Great place to start. Great place to finish. Great place to have all the way around. Here again, in Raton, local business. It's local. So don't be afraid to start local. There's great money to be had locally. And they'll constantly call on you. Once they know you're available and you're working that particular area, they'll call on you. Job listings. There are many writer job listings. This is just a teeny weeny sliver fraction, blah, blah, blah. The best, I still think, is freelancewriting.com because they have feeds from most of the other job feeds. So you do see a lot of different jobs there. If I could ever figure out the technical part, we'll go look at that, which we may do in a minute, theoretically. ProBlogger.com is much newer, obviously, because it's about blogging, than FreelanceWriting.com, and it tends to have jobs for bloggers. The Dirt magazine was on ProBlogger. Why? Even though they're a magazine, they needed people that had a blogging skill set. They're looking for the skill set, okay? The job I got with Credit Union Business, I originally got with FreelanceWriting.com. I've gotten many jobs from there. They're very good. And you can filter the jobs by copywriting, by ghostwriting, by whatever kind of writing you do, so it will narrow down what you're filtering through. Indeed.com, and this has been relatively recent, their freelance part of their job listings has really come up. I mean, Indeed.com was more of a traditional job, if there is such a thing, online job postings. But the freelance part of it has really risen. The work at home part of it has really risen as those have become much more prominent. And so there are quite a few jobs. Just filter it by freelance writing or ghostwriting or copywriting or press releases or whatever it is you're deciding to do that day. Okay? But there are many job sites. Those are the better ones. They tend to have, freelancewriting.com especially, they tend to have a lot of business people on there. You'll find law firms looking for a researcher, looking for a writer. So if you've worked for a lawyer, been a paralegal, anything of that nature, they absolutely want to hire you and they will pay. A lot of businesses are looking for white papers. They're looking for copy. They're looking for this or that. So a lot of businesses use freelancewriting.com because that's where you go to find writers, and they've been around so long. There is also a lot of very good information, great articles on freelance writing on that website. They have done a great job with that website, so I can't say enough about it because I have made a lot of money off that website. But ProBlogger is coming up if you have you have that skill set. A lot of the jobs on ProBlogger also, if you are a social media person, there are a lot of social media jobs to be had. Within both of those, there are a lot of editing jobs. There are remote contributing editors to magazines. All of those jobs are listed. Back in the day, you had to go to people's website and hunt down what. You don't have to do that anymore. You can go here and look and see. You can look up daily. Freelancewriting.com also has a morning coffee. They send out every Tuesday morning. That will have in their, what in their opinion are the top jobs for freelancers, and it'll be a really short list that week. But I would also encourage you always go back to their regular page and look, because there are some gems to be had. And here again, the more specialized, the fewer people you will be competing against. Okay, so if you have a special skill set, let's talk about that for a second. Cheryl came up a second ago, and she is a homeschooler. That is a huge area just by itself. Just by itself. And so as an experienced homeschooler, she already has a tremendous skill set and can immediately go out. There are hundreds of blogs for homeschoolers. There are full magazines. It is a huge industry. That is a great thing to specialize in. Okay, great thing to specialize in. So that's a really good example of someone's existing skill set. Don't need anything special. She's done the work. So that is her claim to fame there. She is an experienced homeschooler. So here again, use what you know. Use what you know. And look for those here. Let's talk a little bit about Upwork. How many of y'all have heard of Upwork?
What?
It's called Upwork. U-P-W-O-R-K. Upwork. It is a place where you can go on and you can list your skill set and people can find you, or you can bid for jobs. Fiverr is a similar type of website. You can bid for jobs. I will be honest about these because I got on Upwork just to see what it was all about, okay? Because I know a writer in Raton who makes 100% of her income from Upwork. And she does very, very well. She owns 2 horses, so you can figure that one out. You know what horses cost. Anyway, but she makes all of her income from Upwork. And she does a lot of that via fiction on Upwork, which is a whole nother difficulty level. But she works very hard too. So I got on there because I thought, okay, I want to see what it's about. Well, you spend a lot of time bidding on jobs. There's a lot of competition. And you have to work really, really hard for what you get because the people who are posting jobs on a place like Fiverr or Upwork are all about the cheapest thing they can get. And you need to understand that. Yes.
Would you spell the other Upworks and are you saying Fiverr?
Fiverr, F-I-V-R-R, Fiverr.
Okay.
Fiverr. It is, you can get graphic design, you can get writing, you can get and the whole deal with Fiverr is it's $5. Well, of course, there are things that are more than $5, but the problem is you're competing on price. As a writer, you should, well, as any kind of business person, you should never compete on price. It's not about what you're worth. It's about what you can negotiate. And when you let go of that negotiating power, you have lost that huge marginal revenue. Sorry, one business side for a sec. But don't do that. That's what I'm saying. So I would never, ever recommend you get on those sites. A lot of time and energy. You have to work very, very hard to make a living there. And you're always competing on price. And that is not how writers should compete. You should compete on quality, on what you bring to the table, on skill set, but never on price. You will not win that war. I am one of those people that believe you price yourself at Tiffany's prices. And if someone doesn't want to pay it, you're not in everyone's budget. That's fine. But my time's worth more than that. And you have to value yourself. Or they'll be paying you $5 if they can get away with it. So you have to really understand those basic business principles and understand your own worth, even if you haven't written a thing yet in any of these areas. Your time is worth a lot. Your time is being taken away from your family. Your time is being taken away from petting your dog, for God's sakes, which is more than $5 worth in my mind. So please don't do that. Always believe in yourself and believe you are at the top and you are at the pinnacle. You can always give them a discount if you need to, but you can't go up in price. So FYI on that, don't do that. I'm not a fan of any of those sites, but I am a fan of the freelancewriting.com, the problogger.com, because those are people who are looking to hire someone and pay them. Okay, Idea Factory. This is my Charlie. If you have been on my Facebook for more than a second and a half, you have seen Miss Charlie.
Oh, yeah.
And we're gonna talk about ideas. So let's say you decide, okay, I want to write travel articles. Well, guess what? You have to pitch ideas on travel articles. Even if you're an existing writer for these magazines, you are constantly being required to pitch ideas. They rarely are gonna bring an idea to you. There are exceptions, and we'll talk about that. They're rarely gonna bring an idea to you. Most of the time, you're required to pitch ideas. When I worked for The Dirt, every single writer was required to pitch 10 ideas a month, which is very low by the way. But they had to be good ideas or you didn't get any assignments. Okay, and you're competing with 17 writers for pitches. So, you have to think about, what are you going to pitch? Where do your ideas come from? Well, ideas are all around you. Everybody says that all the time. But often, because it's our normal life, we don't see those things. We're not listening. I am always listening. Beware what you say around me. That's all I got to say. I am always listening for ideas. And I am typically, especially in my normal life, a very introverted person. I don't go to the grocery store to talk to 58 people. I just want to get my stuff and get out. But you do have to talk to people. You do have to pay attention. You do have to be interested in things. If you're interested, other people will be interested, okay? News stories. This is an evergreen spot. And what I usually do, and I'm going to tell you a story about this. Google is your friend, okay? My parents, who are in their 70s, God bless them, have become avid readers. And Linda was gracious enough to send my parents, because they love shoot 'em up westerns, 3 of her books. My mom and dad read them within a span of about 4 days, all 3 books. And she writes long books, y'all. So then, my mother, who is in a quasi-religious-ish book club, she was reading a book she got in her book club. And she called me. My mother never calls me unless someone dies, but she calls me. And she says, oh my God, this woman in this book, she said, does anyone look at these books before they print them? And I'm like, very well-known author, not Linda, very well-known author. I'm like, and she says, this woman has said twice in this book that OSU is in Norman. I just can't even. I'm like, well, you know, easy mistake, it happens. And she's like, doesn't this woman use the Google? That's what my mother calls it, the Google. So, the Google is your friend when you are a writer. And if you put in odd news, just the phrase odd news, interesting news, it will bring up all kinds of really interesting things. And if you qualify it, odd news, homeschool, odd news, travel, it will bring up really interesting things. It will bring up issues people have had that maybe you can write an article about. It will bring up things that people were unprepared for that maybe you can write an article about. Great source of wonderful ideas. So always be listening. Always be listening. Listen to your news. If you hear something you know, that goes on, when the national park shut down, The Dirt was inundated with ideas from writers. Ooh, we could write this. Ooh, we could write this. Because it was a national news story. So always be looking. Always be looking, always be listening. Go on adventures. When I say go on adventures, do something out of your normal routine. I don't care if it's go to a coffee shop clear across town. You're in Amarillo. Believe me, there's one in Raton, so hey. But go on adventures. I learned to fly fish last year. I've written numerous things on fly fishing. Awesome. I don't know where this was my whole life. But, and here's why Charlie is in this little picture. Miss Charlie is a little cow dog. And she loves to run. And we were on a friend's ranch in the absolute middle of nowhere. Monte Appanell in Mortar County, if any of y'all know where that is. Believe me, I didn't know where that was. It's a ways up from Las Vegas, New Mexico, out in the middle of really nowhere. Somehow she ran into barbed wire, and I mean just absolutely split her whole leg open. It was awful. There's pictures on Facebook, y'all can go back and look. Anyway, it was awful. So I was all in a panic, run her down. The only vet there. Was an old-fashioned vet, Dr. Ben. He's a large animal vet. Stitched her up with steel stitches because she's a cow dog, but hey, that was news to me. Anyway, we were sitting there and I was talking to the vet. Talk to people. Like, oh man, I bet you see a lot of injuries, blah, blah, blah. And he says, you know what's really annoying? I see all these people from Texas, because Texans are the enemy out there, right? I see all these people from Texas bringing their little pocket pooches up to altitude, and they dump them out, and they expect their little pug not to keel over dead. I don't know what they're thinking. I'm like, what? And he said, well, it's altitude sickness. He said, people don't realize that dogs are so susceptible. And we started talking. I had no clue dogs get altitude sickness. Never occurred to me. So, and I'll show you this one, because it actually turned out to be a really popular one. And we'll pop back over to my, well, maybe we will.
Try Alt-Tab.
Yeah, cool. Okay, let me find the old thing. Alt-Tab. That did not work.
It works in the real world.
This is not the real world. It's never the real world when you are talking to an audience because you know everything goes wrong. So anyway, I wrote an article on how to prevent altitude sickness in dogs. It was very popular. But here again, it just came from talking to a vet while he's stitching up my cow dog. Another story, and I'm not even going to try to go to the internet for this one. I had to, because I was the head of the Chamber of Commerce, go to the Governor's Conference on Tourism, which in New Mexico is such a joke. I mean, it's such a dinky little state. It's like, really? So I'm at the El Dorado in Santa Fe. Those of you who know where the El Dorado is, it's right there on the square in Santa Fe. It's fabulous. And I was bored. So I thought I'd take a little walk around. And across the street is this little hat shop where the guy actually does a lot of work on hats and has been there like forever. And people in New Mexico are, it's O'Shea's, people in New Mexico are always like, oh, well, this is where you have to get your hat. So I thought, well, I'll go talk to that guy. You know, it's interesting. Well, he was busy with a customer, and I'm like, huh. So I went back to the bar at the El Dorado, because, hey, I'd rather be doing that than standing there waiting on him. So I'm sitting at the bar in the El Dorado, just killing time. The guy comes and sits down at the bar at the El Dorado, and I'm like, oh, hey, I was wanting to talk to you. Get to talking to him, just chatting about what do you do with the hats, how do you make them, how long has your family been doing it. I love to interview people, and men love to talk about what they do, which is fabulous. It works out. Turns out he made all the hats for Longmire series. Very, very interesting person. Would never have known that had I not been bored.
And gone to the bar.
But always be looking and listening for those connections, because that's where all your ideas come from. Your ideas do not have to be earth-shattering. Go home today and look at your search history on the internet. What have you been trying to figure out how to do? Odds are, so have a whole bunch of other people. You know, we all do those things. Go and look and see what you've been interested to read. Odds are, so are other people. You know, how to train your dog, how to do this, how to do that. How-to articles are always popular. What kind of gear? The editor, and there have been a couple of stories that were editorially driven for the Dirt. One of them was, and this is so funny because you got to realize that online magazines tend to skew very young. So a lot of their writers are the young millennial, and forgive me, Jenny, young millennial hippy-dippy people that are just, they're all vegans and blah, 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 blah. And, you know, and realize, I live in Raton where everybody who camps hunts and they eat meat. And to them, that's just completely foreign. So the editor, because they would come up with story ideas based on search histories, based on what was popular. They wanted to optimize it. The most popular article I wrote, she sent out this deal to all the writers and said, would any of y'all like to do an article about recipes for the campground involving Spam? And these other writers were like, do people eat that? Oh my God. One of the most popular articles they have ever had. Because yes, people do. So look at what other people are searching on Google. You can easily do that on Google. What are the popular searches? That one was editorial driven. Another editorial driven was she sent out a assignment for all of us. We were all supposed to come up with 5 pieces of gear for the campground. Gear things involving kitchen gadgets, all of that stuff, very, very popular. Well, of course, I just looked at my search history. One of them was dog boots that had rubber soles. How many of y'all have hiked above 10,000 feet? All right, you're going to run into patches of snow and ice. And if you have a dog that runs at the speed of wind, she will fly off the mountain at speed of wind if she hits a patch of ice. So she now has dog booties that have rubber soles and that stay on because she has little bitty bumps. So, and here again, that made it into the gear, their end of year gear guide for that reason. People who hike and do so at elevation, that was exactly, it solved a problem. Absolutely solved a problem. So look at your search history and look at what problems you have solved for yourself. And that's a great source of ideas. Now we'll see if I can make this go better. Oh, looky, it's working. I'm just shocked. But those are all great ideas. What do you do with those ideas once you get them? How do you approach someone? Well, if they have posted a job listing, they're expecting you to contact them. So that's easy. Basically, and realize when I taught this as a class, we did one whole class, 3 hours, on how to write a query. I have a single-spaced 3 or 4 page handout on it. There are so many things to it, but the bottom line is, start with the hook. They don't care who you are unless you have a good idea. Start with the hook. And I always put in my subject title, query, and a little tease about what it's about, 3 or 4 or 5 words. And like for the doggy one, altitude sickness in dogs. No, didn't know that was a thing. Click. And then they read your hook. You should spend 3 or 4 lines saying, this is what it's about. Once you do your little 3 or 4 lines, this is what it's about. This is who I am. This is how you contact me. Very short, to the point. They do not want to hear, I'm a single mother of 2 and my dreams. No. These are business people. Cut it down to business. If you have samples of work you have written and they query them, but you might attach a sample, but you need to really look and see if they want attachments. Some do, some don't. Odds are if they like your query, they may ask for attachments. One of the things the Dirt did when they were evaluating the initial 17 writers, they gave each writer an assignment of a particular place. Mine was Robbers Cave in Oklahoma. And said, okay, write a sample blog on this and we will pay you this much for this sample. Very low. I think it's like $20. It's ridiculous. They want to see if you can actually do it. So some of them will send you a little test. So don't be put off by that. They do. They get a lot of writers who say they can do it, but can you actually do it? Okay? So in this case, they gave you a test. Not all will, but some will. So kind of expect that. But you query them. Almost everything is done via email. I can't even tell you the last time I sent out a paper query. Years. Decade probably. I mean, just no. They don't do that. Interestingly enough, when you work for some of these companies now that are run by millennials, they tend to be very tech heavy. So in this particular case, they had project management system Trello. Had to learn how to do that. YouTube. They did all of their instant communications via a program called Slack. Very easy, very intuitive. The problem I found was because they're so attached to it, they're constantly interrupting you. Another reason, not a good fit. I'm like, okay, no. Because they're taking too much time, and they don't realize that. So you have to be aware of some of those things. There may be additional. They paid via a program called Gusto. You got paid almost instantly, which was fabulous. Back in the day when you had to, number one, hope they paid you, wait on a check, hope the check cleared. Now it's all instant. It's instant, 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 which is great for writers because it really helps your cash flow. So those are ideas. And we already did that. So, okay. Let's talk a little bit about why so many people fail. Oh, real quick, we're already at 11:40. The number one reason, lack of professionalism. Lack of professionalism. Clients are not your therapist. Don't be calling them the day something's due. Oh, my kid has the flu. Yeah, I don't care. Produce or don't produce. They don't care. So don't do that. That gives everybody a bad name. It gives you a bad name. And in this day and age, when they can review you online, where they can share information online, don't do that. No self-motivation. Being a freelancer is about getting up every morning, putting your butt in the chair, marketing yourself if you choose to do that, and finding those jobs. It's not about taking an hour on Tuesday and a half hour on Thursday and then lamenting the next Monday how you don't have any work. It is a job, and you have to do it as a job. So you have to be very self-motivated. Cash flow. Let's talk about cash flow a minute. When you are freelancing, you have to pay attention to cash flow. You have to pay attention to when your money is coming in. You have to be on top of your billing. You have to be on top of your taxes. You have to have all those business principles down, because you may make six figures as a freelancer, and you will if you work at it. There's no excuse not to. But if you make all of that money in January and February and you suck wind for the next 10 months, you're going to be bankrupt. You have got to pay attention to cash flow. It is very up and down. One of the great things about cash flow is you can get paid instantly, which is great. But you have to really pay attention to that cash flow. If you have a large contract with a client, it is always in your best interest to split those payments up. Let's say they're going to pay you $10,000. Let's say the agreement is half up front and the remainder in equal portions over the next 3 months. That helps your cash flow. Okay? You have got to really pay attention to your cash flow. So be sure you do that. That will sink you faster than anything. It's awful to tell people you made $100,000 last year and have your lights turned off this month because you're not paying attention to your cash flow. So please do that. Very, very important. Not specialized enough. Please specialize. Specialize in what you know. Focus on one particular area where you can be the subject matter expert, and you will get much more business. Don't chase dollars out of desperation. Don't try and do things you're totally unfamiliar with just because you're desperate for a dollar. It will not turn out well. Okay, people skills and communication. Let's talk about that. If you can, it is always in your best interest to talk face-to-face with your client, even if that is via Zoom or Skype or something of that nature. Even with international clients, I always try to have a face-to-face, and they love that. Because if you're only communicating via email, number one, a lot of things get misconstrued. There are a lot of misunderstandings, and they don't feel like they're dealing with a person. So it is really good to do that. Even if you talk to them via phone, conference call. The more connection you make with your client, the more likely they are to be an ongoing client. Okay? But they've got to get to know you and have a relationship. Even though we are in the digital age, everything is still all about relationships. Your relationship with your clients will determine your referrals. Your relationship with your editor will determine how many assignments you get. They know you can produce. If they know you can produce, and you are one in their stable of writers, it is not unusual to get emails, a lot of them sometimes, saying, hey, this writer crapped out, can you do this by tomorrow? Well, yeah, for a premium, I can. So, those opportunities are there, but you have to really be on top of your people skill game. You have to really work on your email skills. You want to really work on your social media. All of those things where if they look at your social media, even if it's not a business account, they get to know you. They get to know you. You have to enjoy what you do. Absolutely. If you're just doing it for the money, it will show, and you will not get more work. You have to pick something you enjoy. Here again, start with what you know. Those are things you already enjoy. Start with what you know. Lack of life balance. Let's talk about burnout for just a sec. I told you that my business partner and I, our best year, we made $1 million. We were both so burnt out, we both got completely out of the business. She became a nurse. I went back to doing HR, which is awful. When HR is your option, believe me, things have gone downhill. But you will reach burnout. Here again, that's why it's so important to price yourself at Tiffany's prices. Take fewer jobs and do a better job on those jobs and have life balance. If you are working for $5 or $10 a job and you're working 15 to 20 hours a day, you will hit burnout. You will hate it. And that is not good because it's a great source of revenue. So pay attention to that. Better to price yourself higher, do fewer jobs, and have a larger marginal revenue than to burn yourself out. It absolutely will happen. Do not let that be you. Because it's sad to put so much time and effort into something, and because you totally overdid it, you were a complete overachiever, you lost that source of revenue. So please don't do that. So, there we go. Okay, now we're going to do some Q&A. We only have about 15 minutes left, but I do want to answer some questions. Let me think, what questions? Who's got a question? Yes, back in the back.
If you've never done freelance, how do you know how to price yourself?
Okay, that is a good question. And the question was, if you've never done freelance, how do you know how to price yourself? Writer's Digest always has a good listing of average pricing for a whole slew of things, from press release to copywriting to ghostwriting, for a whole slew of things. And that's a good kind of barometer, because the way they have it set up is, this is your pricing if you're a beginner, this is your pricing if you've got a little bit of experience, this is the pricing for an expert. So it kind of gives you a range. However, that doesn't mean that's what you should price yourself at. Start at the top. And a lot of these jobs will already have a set budget. They pay X amount for X amount. So you know before you apply what the pricing is, okay? If you're having to price yourself, those are only those people who have not told you what they're going to pay. Like if someone says, hey, I need a press release, how much do you charge? That's when that would come into play. You would have to know, okay, here's what I'm going to charge, okay? But that's a really good barometer, because they take an average of surveys they do of working writers, and that's where they get those averages. And it really is pretty accurate. They update it constantly, and but that's a really good way that's a great place to start thinking about your pricing when you have to. Thankfully, on a lot of these, you don't have to think about pricing. You can just see what the pricing is and say yes or no. That's something I want to do, or that's not something that's worth my time.
Is that online?
Yes, Writer's Digest. It is online. I don't know if you have to be a member or not to get that information. I think they actually post it. You may have to hunt for it. And here again, they're going through a bankruptcy now, so God knows. F&W, I guess, is their parent company. Yeah. I don't know how that'll turn out. So any more questions?
I got one.
Yes.
Okay, how much plastic surgery did you have to learn to write?
You know,
write the book on plastic surgery.
That's a good question. When we had our business, I would tend to do books that are obviously financial, because that's financial services. It's where I started. Was financial services. I was a qualified fund specialist for Prudential, and ended up in employee benefits, which ended up being anyway, like that, right? So I did financial books that had to do with stock market, trading, tax books, real estate, investing books, and here again, it's international, so you also have to learn the rules in those countries, which is fabulous. It's really very interesting. But so I did those books. And I tended to do all of the medical books, just like Dr. Bush, who's a chiropractor. We did several surgical books. We did cosmetic dentistry, which I wrote. We did the plastic surgeon books. We actually did 3 of those. One was a dermatologist, one was a med spa, and this guy who did, basically he's a boob guy, he does boob jobs. That's kind of his thing. And so, but research, it is not hard. You would be amazed because these are not books that are scientific journals.
Oh,
These are books written for the lay person, which gives you an advantage. You are a lay person. And when you're talking with that client, and doctors are notorious for thinking that they're the end all be all, but you have to convince them, don't write a book for your colleagues, write a book for your patients. They have to understand it. And if you as the writer don't understand it, you need to go back to them and say, I need more explanation. How do you explain this to a client that just walks in and is thinking about it? How do you sell them on this? Or how do you talk to them about these highly technical things? And that is what you write. You don't write the really technical stuff. You don't need technical expertise because you're writing it as a layperson for a layperson. So that's how you get around that. Same is true with articles. These are not scientific journals. They are to help people understand very complex concepts. And you have to draw that out of your client. Yes?
Do you think there's a difference in the price point you charge for articles that are going to become print versus just your blogging articles? Because that's something that's not really, I don't see a lot of information price difference between print freelance and actual online blogging.
That's a good question because the print is becoming less and less and less and less. And it will continue to. There is a difference. Print articles tend to be long. Blogs tend to be very, very short. And there is a big difference between, number one, the tone they're written in, the language they're written in. There is a big difference. Blogs tend to be priced much less. And here again, a lot of them pay per blog, like $100, $200. If someone is paying, and let's say it's 500 words, if they're paying less than $200, they're probably getting people from India to write those. That's probably not a company you want to deal with. So think about that. If they're paying that low, that is probably not what you want to do. But yes, there is a difference. Oh, look. Imagine that. See, this is the pupper one. And so, but that's a really good question because the traditional writing in magazines, it is much harder to break into anymore because so many of them are now staff written. They don't even hire freelancers. The places that do hire freelancers, it's very competitive. Doesn't mean you can't do it at all, but it is good pay. But there's a lot more opportunity in the blogging world. And let's talk about blogs for a second. Blogs are a whole entire industry. Whole entire industry. There are people who make so much money just on their blog, and that's all they do. They have learned how to monetize their blog. And one of your people, Rick DeVoe, has a blog he's been working on. There it is right there. And he's already got it up. It looks beautiful, by the way.
oh, wow.
And hopefully he will be learning to monetize that blog via advertising, product placement. There are many, many ways to monetize that blog. There are also many, many bloggers who offer classes that are very affordable or free that will teach you how to monetize your blog, how to increase your blog traffic. A lot of that is free. Please take advantage of it. Please take advantage of it. If you teach something, I'll get you a minute. If you teach something, online classes are very, very popular. Online classes are very, very popular. Let me talk to you a little bit about Nancy. I'll go to her. Nancy is an artist. How many of y'all have heard that art doesn't pay? We've all been told that. Come on, Nancy. It'll take a sec to pull up. I went down to one of Nancy's classes. She teaches classes online, and she also has live classes in her Flower Mound studio. So the Joyful Brush, she is fabulous at florals. That's her thing. She quit her corporate job 5 years ago to do this full time. And I think, well, that's great. Isn't that sweet, right? Her Joyful Brush, I believe it's like $50 a month to join. You get online classes. She has 1,500 people who pay her $50 a month. Do the math on that. Do the math. The class I was in Flower Mound, there was like 10 of us. And between what the class cost, what we paid for the class, and of course we all bought artwork. She made $15,000 that weekend. She has one every weekend. Do the math on that. She makes well over $1 million a year. Art pays. Don't think it doesn't. She also has a blog that is monetized. She is a consummate business person. That's what separates an artist who makes money from one that doesn't. It does not have anything to do with your art. It has to do with how good a business person you are. The same is true for writers. If you are a business person, you will be that one writer out of 10,000 that makes $1 million a year. But you must be a business person to do so. Okay, who else had a question? We got another one back there.
It's kind of hard to read on your PowerPoint, the words of it. Would you consider emailing a PDF of your PowerPoint to us?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really sized down version of my class, but yeah, absolutely will. Yes, Jenny.
On your ghostwriting?
Yeah.
How did you get into that? How did you find business to ghostwrite?
Well, what happened was in 2006, I was working in financial services and I started freelancing, right? And there was a guy, his name's David, I won't say his last name, he turned out to be a real jerk, but his name was David, and he was looking for ghostwriters. I'd never ghostwritten, and actually he was looking for a ghostwriter for this book, right here. He subsequently made Dr. mad and he came with our company, but in 2006, that was the first one I did. Because he was looking to hire a ghostwriter. One of those, he put up a post that said, I'm looking to hire a ghostwriter. That's how I found him.
So
It's
like
from
on one of these sites?
Yes, freelancewriting.com. He put up a post that says, hey, I'm looking for this. Okay? Started working for him. As we started working for different clients, they knew other people. Some of those people also were publishers. So it's like word got out that I could ghostwrite, and then I realized, well, gee, if we had a group of writers, and we do here locally, there are so many writers here locally, I thought, okay, well, let's just get some buddies, and my business, Liz ended up being my business partner, but she was one of the first buddies, like, okay, we can do this. So we all got together as a group, there's 4 or 5 of us, and one of the problems back then was getting paid. Thought, okay, if we team up and we band together and we agree to work for these publishers that need ghostwriters and writing coaches for their clients to finish their books, then we have more power. So what we did was we created a company called TAG. The Amarillo Group is what it stood for. TAG, right? And I was the project manager. And we ended up having 15 different writers from Lubbock, from Amarillo, from all over. Well, actually, Jenny's son, Jenny, and Jenny, they both worked, and that was forever ago. But the power in that was, and there were more than once, that one of these publishers said, yeah, we're not going to pay that much anymore. We're not going to do that. Yeah, bye-bye. We all went on strike. You're screwed. And we had that power. We also had the power to negotiate more money. So there was a lot of power in that. You had a business person in control of the money, so they didn't have to each individually try and get paid. They paid us directly into our organization, and we paid the writers. And that way, we had them set up on a I believe it was a weekly or bi-weekly schedule. We got paid, and if we didn't get paid, everybody stopped work. Everybody told their clients their publisher wasn't paying us. We never had a problem. Never. But here again, you have to figure out a way where you know your power. That is much less common these days. Everything is electronic. Back then, you didn't have the power to review people and all that stuff. Now you do. So that gives you a lot more power. But that's how it started. We ended up working for, I believe it was 5 different publishers. And here again, no website, no social media, nothing. And that's how we got started. And a lot of those clients, like Dr. Linder, we still work for. His wife did a book too. But, and we get referrals from them. So that's, that's how it works. And that's how we started. But it came from a job posting. So those have tremendous power. Just one posting can turn into your $1 million baby down the line. And really, it happened very, very quickly. Very, very quickly. So, and today it happens even faster. You have to be prepared for that. Because things happen so quickly, magazines and blogs, they go into business, they go out of business. And you may be right in the middle of working for one and they're, oh, guess what? We're not in business anymore. Bye-bye. You have to be prepared and ready to churn it and find something to replace them. Or if, like with the dirt, you get on there, they change how they're going to pay. They say, oh, well, we have all the power now. Well, guess what? No, they don't. All the writers quit. So, yeah, they're hurting. But that's based on their decision. So you have to be able to walk away from things. I know there were a couple of times, actually twice that I can think of, when we were working for these companies that we went on strike. And there was a lot of uncertainty. The writers were like, oh my God, no, don't tell them we're going to leave. We're not going to get paid. And I'm like, either you're all in or you're all out. You are all in or you are all out. You have to be able to negotiate your worth. And if you're not worth anything to them, then your leaving won't matter anyway. But truthfully, they need you worse than you need them. But some of them fail to realize. It's kind of like when you're working with agents and editors in New York. And agents especially think you work for them. You do not. They are salespeople. They work for you. And you have to know your work. You have to know the structure. You're the producer. If they could produce the books, they wouldn't need you at all. But they can't. They can't. You offer something they cannot do. So never let them browbeat you into taking less money, doing this. I think the editor at The Dirt was very surprised. I was the first writer to leave. And immediately on Slack, which they shut down my Slack account the next day, but immediately on Slack, all the other writers were, what are you doing? What are you doing? So I just told them. They all left too. There is tremendous power in solidarity with your fellow writers. Tremendous power. Even now, there are some of those writers, and I didn't know them but for just a few months, that I refer business to that I don't have time for. It is always good to know your fellow writers and have a tremendous amount of solidarity with them because they will also bring you business. So, okay, we are...
Okay, just a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, so say you take a job ghostwriting a book. What do they send you? What do they send you? Just an idea? What do they?
The answer to that is yes. Let's talk about ghostwriting and writing coaching for a little bit. Ghostwriting obviously has gotten a bad name, especially for ladies. Part of that is because a client sends you a partial book or whatever and tells you, hey, fix this and make it happy. You don't realize it's been copy and pasted from Nora Roberts. That's a problem. I know to ask a lot of questions. And I do that, but a client can go everywhere from like David Orr, wrote nothing, wanted me to interview him every week over a series of 8 weeks, and that's what we did. I interviewed him via phone. I've never met him in person actually. Interviewed him via phone. Others will send you most of a book, things that, or they started it. And we all know when you get to that 100-page point, you run out of stuff to say. And a lot of them will get to that point and say, okay, I don't know how to make this work. And they'll give you that. But it can be anything. It can absolutely be anything on the spectrum from an entire book they just want you to make happy, all the way from absolutely nothing like Tom's book. And he says, write it about this, make it funny, go for it. It can be anywhere on that spectrum. Anywhere on that spectrum. And so that's how I sometimes determine my pricing. I have a base rate. But if they want me to interview people that they're wanting quotes from for their book, well, that's a lot more because it takes your time. You got to chase them down. You got to do the interview. got to put it, and they're not giving you any of that. So that determines some of your pricing. But I do have a base rate, and I know which books I can do very, very quickly. So a lot of times I'll do them a little cheaper because, I can do them quickly. It's way within anything in the leadership area. Or another thing, let's just say someone accuses you of plagiarism. It will happen on occasion. Happened to me. I wrote a book for Bob Proctor. Bob Proctor is pretty well known in the personal development area. And that book had a lot of management principles in it. And this guy named Steve, I can't even remember his last name at this point, Steve something or another, sends this email to Bob, which Bob just forwards, And this basically said, oh, you plagiarized, I've got articles, you did, this is from this, and this line came from here, and blah, blah, blah. And it was all up on his website. And I'm like, dude, in 2003, I wrote my MBA thesis on management versus leadership. And I basically said, I think you stole this from me. Never heard from him again. I mean, seriously, give me a break. There are some ideas that are ubiquitous. They're just out there in the nether. However, in fiction, huge deal. And when you see people online, I need you to write a 50,000 word romance. The pay is $1,000. That's going to be a copy and paste special. Not good. And that's what they're going to get. And that's how people get in trouble. So you have to ask questions. If someone sends me something, I had a Swedish lady send me a bunch of stuff, and I asked her a lot of questions. Because I've done so much work in the area of personal development, it sounded just a little too familiar. Sure enough, there were notes she'd taken straight from another book, which, knowing that, I could just credit that book, reword that, put her spin on it in there, and that's totally fine. But you as the writer need to know, ask those questions, and then make it happen. That's all you need to know. It's not something to be afraid of. It's just something to be very aware of. Very aware of, especially when you work with international people. Their idea of copyright is much less than ours. So, anyway, are there any more questions, or are y'all ready to?
I don't have a question. I just want to tell you, I wish I'd had you 25 years ago when I started freelancing as a journalist. And I will say how much has changed, as well as publishing.
Oh yeah.
In
and
those
continues
years.
To.
Oh my goodness.
Continues to. It changes faster.
But everything you've said, it's just wonderful for those people who want to do it. I'm too old now to freelance anymore. I have to finish my books.
Yeah. well, like I say, I developed this into basically a 6-week course, and so I do have a great deal of information that unfortunately time doesn't allow to be presented here. But if y'all decide you want that included in the conference or something down the road, just give me a holler and I'll be happy to do that. All right.
Thank you.